Have you spent much time in China?
No, just a couple of months. I mean, just about a month. The Chinese government invited me over for a conference on medicinal herbs. So that was great. I mean, I've been wanting to get to China my whole life, but I could never really afford it. Yeah, so just books coming in, donated books.
Okay.
With boxes of them upstairs that have never even been unpacked. This entire thing is about Chinese garden design. Something that's very interesting to me, philosophy of Chinese garden.
Wow, so if someone is interested in this field, coming to you is like going to Harvard, you know. You're not the higher education institution, I'm saying, but you're the knowledge that took a lifetime to accumulate.
On some of these topics, yeah. The reason Chinese gardens are so interesting to me is they were built for self-improvement. Like the idea is to create an area with perfect energy, because what you do in a Chinese garden is you practice Tai Chi, you do meditation, you write poetry, you do landscape painting, you play your zither. Mm-hmm. It's all like for spiritual development. So the purpose of the garden is to have optimum chi energy, because we derive our chi from the environment. Like I like English landscape gardens, they're very nice, but the Chinese have this extra dimension that is really a garden that's good for you. Okay. Which is what I want my garden to be. It stayed balanced between the Taoists who said we should live according to nature and the Confucians who said we should live according to society. So the Confucians are the ones that want to kind of manipulate everything. The Taoists, but most of all and China has like made many important worldwide discoveries. Printing, paper making, gunpowder, the compass. This is all from China. But they didn't use it to colonize the rest of the world. Those are all discoveries because the Taoists were really interested in understanding the planet in order to fit better, not in order to change it around. They just wanted to fit in better. That was their goal.
So explain again the equivalent of that in Western society. You're saying in Greece?
Oh yeah, well there were schools of thought that thought we should live according to nature. And we now call them cynics and skeptics, and Epicurus was another one. But all that's left is fragments. There's not very much left of all the things they wrote, Heraclitus and so on. A lot of it's very Taoist.
What about the argument that, yeah, this way, let's just say away from technology, modern world, more off the land, more in tune with nature, isn't scalable for the average person, i.e. you're in an apartment tower that holds 1,000 people. You're really taking up very little space to have that existence. You're all sharing one roof. You're not taking up land. So in a way, because society, we have a fixed amount of people on the earth right now at this very time, if everyone was spread out, then there'd be no nature in a sense, right?
I looked into it at one point, and they it might have changed by now because this was about 40 years ago. But the amount of land per person was doable. In fact,
in America, it's doable.
No, this was worldwide. The amount of arable land per capita, and it breaks down into like there's arable land which you can cultivate, and then there's sort of agricultural land would be more like pasture and so on. And then there's wasteland. And you can figure out, you can divide the number of people on Earth into the number of acres of that stuff. And everybody gets, about an acre of arable land and another couple of acres of this kind of number 2 land.
But
But my whole project is wasteland. This land would not be classified as good for anything.
Okay.
So that's part of the experiment.
Because it's too hilly.
Hilly, and it was 80% rocks.
Okay.
This was a very fun project.
This is when it originally was built.
This is the original building. Okay. Almost all the material came off the land. I'm well endowed with poplar trees, and I got plenty of rocks, and I got clay to make cob out of. So it was just me and a couple of guys. The biggest machine that's ever been on this land would be a chainsaw. Everything is just hand labor.
If you were young, let's say 30 years old right now, is there any way you'd do it differently, arranging this lifestyle?
Oh, I would have to rethink the whole thing, given what I know now about the ecosystems and so on. I mean, I would still need to make a clearing because just for diversity of habitats, you know.
Okay.
You can't do everything in the woods, but part of the reason why I'm interested in medicinal herbs is because a lot of them grow in the woods. And I didn't want to cut down all my trees. So there's this whole concept of non-timber forest products, which is mostly used in the tropics to try and get people to not cut down all the forests.
Yeah.
But it's equally valid here. I was very naive when I started. I never studied botany in school or ecology or any of that stuff.
You learned all of this as you went along?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What would your advice, you've lived a lot of life, you have a lot of wisdom, what would your advice be for a young person right
Get
now?
a hold of a little piece of land.
And just start.
And go from there, yeah. Yeah, we used to have a really nice little cob dome. It was built at a cost of $50. It was like a kiva. Guy bent in saplings and then put clay. It was beautiful. A tree fell on it and didn't really bust it down, but it kind of hurt it enough that water started to get in. So about 10 years later, there was a lot of rot. We had to knock it down. But it was wonderful. So that's like a house you could whack together for $50, you know, and you're off and running. You know, you don't need much more than a pointed stick, really. I mean, you don't need a big bankroll. I started off here, my bankroll was, I think, $500 total that I got from a season of apple picking. And we bought a bunch of tools and we bought 50 pounds of brown rice, you know, packed it all into a little Volkswagen, and here we were. The whole thing we need to do is live according to Gaia. That explains all the problems we're having on Earth, is because we no longer have a valid niche. You know, once upon a time when we were hunter-gatherers, etc., we had a valid niche. We fitted into the whole system, and then we went off on our own.
But maybe the system was very communal. Like your trip, I'm sorry, what was the island you went to?
Borneo.
Borneo. It's very communal, so that system works really well.
Tribal.
We're in a very, tribal system. We're in a very individualistically driven culture. Has its pros, has its cons. One of the cons is, how do you create these systems where there's community doing all of their part and working together?
Well,
like what holds it together?
That's the challenge.
Because there they have survival maybe to hold them together, or some sort of spirits or
kinship,
gods.
tribal
Kinship.
Society, yeah.
So what do we have holding us together? I mean, religion's always been the staple for that sort of thing.
There's a book I'm reading at the moment.
Okay, is the answer in here?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's got a positive definition of the primitive. I see a huge dichotomy between what I call civilization and the primitive. The primitive being life in Gaia, civilization being life in society, based on money. Yeah, they have, primitive societies are based on kinship, basically. Tribal societies, that's what holds them together.
So you can always tap out here in a way. We're in a modern society. If you need help, you can go off this plot of land and someone or something's going to help you. Like even if you had an accident, you go to the ER room, right? So maybe there's that knowing there's something there outside of that.
Oh, for sure. That's
tribe.
what makes, that's what gives us the freedom to do this kind of thing. Whether or not that's going to be available in 50 years.
Where do you think, and obviously nobody has a clue, as a society, where things are heading?
Oh, I think we've got a very, very difficult future coming up. Just merely with climate change. You know, large parts of the country are going to become very difficult to inhabit. If we think we've got an immigration crisis now, just wait. Wait until, you know, everything below 30-degree latitude becomes uninhabitable. What are we going to do then, you know? Politically, you know, the one way people are reacting is to become more right-wing. They want somebody in authority to sort it all out for them. It's impossible for the government to fix the problems that are coming along because the problems are caused by the government.
But an argument would be the right wing would say the left wing is authoritarian and they want everyone to figure things out for them.
Yeah, I know.
So each side says the same thing.
Sure.
It's interesting, right?
Yeah.